Oh yeah, what's going on, everybody? How's it going? It is May 10th, 2020. Yeah, it's kind of gloomy out today, but happy Mother's Day. All the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day, Mom. Not that she's listening or watching or knows what podcast is, but that's neither here nor there. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Little Richard passed away yesterday, so that's a sad thing. He lived it though. He put in a lot of work, a lot of years. So you can't be too mad when the proverbial ticket gets punched or whatever you want to say. True innovator of rock and roll. So, thoughts and stuff go out to his family and his fans worldwide. So, a true innovator for sure. I'm just going to get into this right away. I was super excited for the UFC came back last night on the big stage. Nothing else is going on, so they take center stage, and I'm sure there was a bunch of people at least watching something of it. What a great event! What a great event for all the way from the early prelims all the way through to the main event of the pay-per-view. Fantastic. Just run down right quick here. Ryan Spann beat Sam Alvey. Decision. I think that was a split decision. Yeah, that could have went either way. It wasn't. I think first round was definitely Spann's, and then the second round I think was Alvey's, if I remember right. Third round, I don't know. Could have went either way. It was one of those pick'ems. You didn't know, but that's all right. So Spann wins the decision. Bryce Mitchell just mauled Charles Rosa. I've never seen anything like this. I don't know. Rosa might have landed a few strikes, but Bryce Mitchell completely mauled him. He had him down almost the whole 15 minutes. Probably went in and out of like 10, maybe a dozen submissions. Tried to get a twister, which he's one of only two people to ever win with a twister, and I think he tried it like 4 or 5 times. And if he wouldn't have ran out at the end of round 2, I think he would have got another one. But he just ran out of time. That was awesome. Then the prelims. Let's see here. Vicente Luque and Nico Price. They beat the snot out of one another. Nico Price is a psycho. Luque ends up winning by a doctor's stoppage in the round 3. Nico Price's eye was like something really closed. whatever analogy you want to use. His face was swollen real hard, and Vicente Luque he didn't come out unscathed either. But yeah, he hit him. I don't remember what he hit him with it, but that eye closed up real quick. Carlos Esparza beat Michelle Watterson. Yeah, I don't know. That one was that was close. I think that was a really close fight. That one might have been split decision too. I don't remember for sure. But yeah, that one was really close. I don't think either woman really got rocked. Esparza got it to the ground a few times. I don't think she really was able to do anything. So, congratulations to her. Alexei Olnik beat Fabricio Verdum. That first round, Olnik came out. They're both grappling guys. And Olnik came out and served it to Verdum in the first round. Really beat him up. And Verdum hadn't fought in over 2 years, and he's already an older for the sport gentleman. Excuse me. So Olnik really put it to him in that first round, and then he kind of slowed down a bit and Verdum kind of started to do things, get him down to grappling. He did have a double wrist lock Kimura. I don't remember if that was in the third round or not. Might have been the second, but Olnick just got out of it. Real slick maneuver. So that was a fun fight to watch. All these are pretty fun fights to watch so far. Okay, and then the main event of the prelim, Anthony Pettis, our Milwaukee guy, beat Cowboy Cerrone. That was a back and forth fight. That was a lot of fun too. You know, that anytime Cerrone and Pettis, both of them, they're both exciting, and then you put them together. This is the second time they fought. Pettis won the second time here, but this one was at 170. The other one was at 155, if I remember right. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Went to decision. Lots of decisions here coming up, but, you know, that happens. But they were still really compelling, fun fights. So you wanted all the time you could get. So they really beat each other up. And Cerrone looked way better than he did when he fought Connor. I don't know. You know, MMA math doesn't make any sense. So, but yeah, shout out to Pettis. He won. He kind of needed that. I know Donald did too, but he's got so many records, and he's kind of, I mean, he's closer to the end than he is at the beginning. And he continues to fight top talent. He's not going out there trying to fight gimmies. So he wants to fight the best people, and you know, he holds his own, obviously, for the most part. He's a cowboy. You can't do anything but cheer for that guy. You know, you're a you're a bad person if you don't cheer for the Cowboys. So, but he was fighting our hometown boy. So shout out to Anthony Pettis. Good job on the excellent victory. You looked really good. All right, then we get to the main card. We had Greg Hardy versus Yorgan De Castro. Greg Hardy's a former football player. He had some legal problems, but he is an athlete. He's still super young in his fighting. He's only been doing it like 2 years, which is crazy. And then he's fighting on main cards of UFC events. He ended up winning with decision. The turning point in the fight, I think it was early in the second round or maybe midway through the second round. Yorgan De Castro went for a leg kick that he was just eating. He was just beating Greg Hardy's legs up the whole first half of the fight. And he went for a leg kick and clipped his foot, clipped his toes on Greg Hardy's shin. And he pulled back instantly. So he had to have broken toes, maybe broke something in the top of his foot, but the rest of that round, he didn't throw another kick. He was just backing up the whole time. And that changed the fight. You know, Greg Hardy was in it, but he was on his way probably to losing if it would have kept up that way. Because he's a young guy in the sport. Yorgan De Castro, I think, is a better technical striker. But that's not what happened. So Hardy weathered the storm, and he started teeing off on De Castro. And De Castro really didn't bring a whole lot after that, so he definitely messed up something in his foot. What are you going to do? It's fighting, you know. So Greg Hardy wins the decision. It was a pretty good fight. You don't know exactly what you're going to get out of Greg Hardy. Sometimes he's done it a few times where he does something that he doesn't realize is illegal, and then he gets disqualified, or there goes to a no contest or something like that. They're just kind of dumb things, but we don't have to get into that. It's fine. So Greg Hardy wins the decision. Pretty dominating fashion. Next fight, Kelvin Kattar versus Jeremy Stephens. Jeremy Stephens missed weight by like 4.5 pounds, so not sure what was going on there. He's a psycho. He's going to get finished, or he's going to finish you. He's an exciting fighter. That's why he's been around. I think he's started in 2006 with the UFC. So he's been around a long time. And that's not only for a fighter, that's a long time, but to be a UFC fighter, that's a long time. And he fights a fan-friendly style. He just kind of fire and brimstone kind of fighter. Kelvin Cater is he's not really an up and comer, but he hasn't been in the UFC super duper long time. Super duper. But he's a fantastic striker. He was a boxer for many, many years. And he put it to Stevens, and he finished him in the second round, about midway through the second round ish. Excuse me. It's really dry in my house. So fantastic fight. Stevens had his moments. I know he broke Cater's nose. That looked pretty funky. But at the end of the fight, Cater hit Jeremy Stevens with a standing elbow, put him down, and then rained some ground and pound. And right as it was going to get finished, it looked like the ref was coming in for it. He hit him with another elbow that put a giant gash on his forehead. And instant pouring blood. So that was it. And you could tell Jeremy Stevens had no idea what happened because he was ticked that they stopped the fight. But it's like, no, you're done. Sometimes they save the fighters from themselves. Not sometimes, a lot of times. So great victory for Kelvin Cater. He needed that. I can talk today. And he's going to continue to go up the featherweight rankings. No, good for him. He's a great fighter. Next, heavyweight, Francis Ngannou versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Yeah, say that one again. No. This was chaos, and we knew it was going to be chaos. You knew it wasn't going to go to the 3 rounds, and it didn't get close. It was closer to the start than it was the finish for damn sure. Francis, 20 seconds, knockout win for Francis Ngannou. God, he's freaking scary. He's one of those guys that, like, if you saw him, if you saw him walking down the street, you might go to the other side of the street because you're like, geez, that guy is fucking huge. And, but he seems like he's the absolute nicest guy. He's super soft-spoken, but he's a monster. And there's taking nothing away from Rozenstruik. He came in undefeated. He was 10-0. He called out Francis, which nobody does. He wanted that fight. And Francis gave it to him. They were kind of feeling each other out a little bit. Rozenstruik is he's a very accomplished kickboxer. He had like tons and tons of kickboxing matches. So he knows what he's doing on the feet for sure. A couple leg kicks. Francis had a flurry, started backing up Rozenstruik, and then he caught him with this left hand, perfectly placed, and he was out. He was out before he hit the ground. He leaned up, he fell against the cage. He was already out as soon as he got hit. And, it happens really quick. So Francis got a couple more bombs in there before the ref pulled him off. But, geez, 20 seconds. 20 seconds. It was insane. So, you almost don't expect anything less from Francis Ngannou. And since he lost to Stipe for the title, he's rattled off 4 wins, and I think there isn't a whole lot of ring time, and it's all first-round knockouts. Besides there was one fight that he had was a stinker right after he lost the title fight. He was kind of messed up from that, I guess. So once he got past that, 4 straight, he's back. He's a number 1 contender. So whenever they the heavyweight division stops being held up. It's not really by anybody's fault necessarily, depending on how you look at it. But either way, he's the number one contender. There's no debate. So whenever the title picture gets figured out, he's fighting for the title. And he was scary when he fought for the title a few years back. He's just way better. He's even better now. He's insanely skilled, and he's got, I don't know, semi-trucks in his hands. So he's a bad dude for sure. Triple C, Henry Cejudo, beats Dominic Cruz in the second round, just at the closing of almost closed out the second round. So it was really close to being done. It was a little bit controversial, I guess. Cruz was real ticked off at the referee for finishing or calling the fight, I should say. He did take like a bunch of strikes. He got punched in the face a whole lot. I understand his point. He was saying that he was getting up. So in the time you get up, you're going to take some shots. He took a bunch of them, and ref called the fight. So I can see his point if he's coherent, because he's already a very well-spoken guy, and he just got punched in the face like 12 times, and he was completely coherent. So, but again, like I said before, the referees are there to save the fighters from themselves sometimes. So Henry Cejudo defends the bantamweight title and then promptly retires. He said he was done. He's walking away. He's 33 years old. He's walking away. So good for him. He's got a bunch of stuff he wants to do in his life. He wants to start a family, all that good stuff. And he probably, he wants to be coherent for whenever his family does start, You get punched in the face for a living. There's effects to that. So good for him. Good for him. He went out on top. He's an Olympic wrestling champion. Won the flyweight title by beating Demetrius Johnson, someone who had like 11 or 12 title defenses at that time. And then he moves up to bantamweight, wins the bantamweight title. Looked great in that, pretty great in that fight. Beats Dillashaw in like no time, and beats, probably the greatest bantamweight of all time, Dominic Cruz. It's the first time he's ever been finished. He did say, Cruz did say that he didn't feel as though he got finished, but it goes in the record books as a second round TKO. Props to Cejudo. Dominic Cruz did look pretty dang good for having like 3.5 years away, various injuries and stuff like that. So Cejudo was getting him with leg kicks, and that had to have an effect. And Cejudo had good hands, man. He's really, I guess, in probably his physical prime now. But hey, you're the champ. Everywhere you've gone, you've won. You've been the best at. I'm sure he's made decent money. Enough to be able to walk away at 33. So good for him. Then the main event. Oh man, was this awesome. It was kind of a pick'em. I thought Ferguson was going to win, but I didn't think he was going to win going away, like he was going to beat Justin Gaethje's ass or anything like that. I knew it was going to be pretty much a pick'em. I just was like, I'm going to go with Ferguson. My wife went with Gaethje. We watched a bunch of Gaethje fights, his old PFL stuff, and man, what a different fighter he is now. This is the best Justin Gaethje has looked He's kind of a go out on his sword kind of guy. So he's either going to get knocked out or he's going to knock you out. So he finishes dang near everybody, or he gets finished. His 2 fights, he got knocked out. You know, he would take, what is the average? I think he would give like just over 8 strikes per minute, which is a very, very high rate, but he would take almost 10. So he'd take a bunch to give some. And he hits really hard. Tony Ferguson's a psycho. He looked at the end of the fight like people who fight Tony Ferguson typically look like. He was cut up. It looked like his eye was going to close. It somehow didn't. But Gaethje put it to him and chopped his legs out because Gaethje has these leg kicks that would probably take out a T-Rex. Weird analogy, but hey, I'm a weird guy, so deal with it. His leg kicks take out T-Rex, and Tony Ferguson ate them all. Didn't even check one of them. Ate them all. No selling it. He took more. It was ridiculous how many times Gaethje punched Tony Ferguson. I don't know what the numbers were. Maybe because of their, kind of cutting back on staffing or whatever. Maybe they weren't even taking, keeping track of those. I'm sure they were, but I don't know how many times Ferguson got hit and he kept coming. I've never seen anybody take punches like that. Gaethje's knocked out everybody with the shots that he was giving him, and he kept coming. He was slowing down a lot. Ferguson didn't look quite as scary as he normally does. But, I don't know if it was he cut weight for the fight that was supposed to be 3 weeks earlier. I don't know. He's a psycho. But either way, he is getting older. Obviously, he's still elite. But it just wasn't his night. Gaethje looked better than he ever has. He looked more plotting. Didn't look quite as wild. Didn't look like he was going to put himself in danger nearly as much as he normally does. He normally would stick his head out there and just throw his punch, and if he gets caught, he gets caught. But this time he was keeping his head off center line, and he fought a great fight. So he's turned that corner. So we're gonna get Gaethje and Khabib, and that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun for dang sure. So all right, now that I wasted everybody's time talking about the UFC for a long time here, thanks for sticking with me since this is a music podcast, but whatever, right? It's my show. It's my show. I can talk about what I want. Swig of coffee here. Okay. So, I talked about my first gig last week, and at the end of it, I was like, oh, maybe we'll talk about what I've learned, over this, 23 years since my first gig. So I figured that'd probably be a good way. So I was originally writing notes for this, and it kind of turned into more of what I noticed. I mean, these are things I've learned, obviously, but kind of what makes it easier to play live gigs so you're the most prepared. There's a lot of, obviously there's young musicians every day, and it's trial by fire. And you learn by doing, but there's also a lot of people. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are much more experienced as I am, But I do have a pretty extensive background in performing music, playing music. I've been as I established, I've been playing music in front of people since I was 15 years old. And now I'm just old. So I learned some stuff. So maybe you will. Maybe you'll learn some stuff too. Obviously, the first thing is being prepared, and that means a lot of things. You always want to be prepared. Like I said on the last podcast, when we played our first show, where we thought maybe we were prepared, but we definitely weren't. Again, we only been a band for a short period of time. It's our first band. You don't know anything. 15 years old, you don't know anything. And then playing your first show in front of people, you definitely don't know anything. So you need to be well rehearsed. That takes a lot of time. And it takes there's a difference between practice and and rehearsal. Rehearsal is just keeping things sharp, being tight. You want the other people in your band to practice at home. So then when you all come together, it's a nice slick rehearsal, and then you're just tightening the screws a little bit. If there's anything not quite working, then you get that figured out. But you practice at home and you rehearse with the band. So the rehearsals are supposed to be real easy. But when you're first starting out in a band, or you're a young band, even if you're older dudes, but you're a young band, it's practice. You're getting used. If you haven't played with those people, haven't played together with those people, you're getting used to each other. And eventually you just learn, you learn where everybody's going to be. And I don't really know how to explain that. It's more of just, you feel it, you guys kind of lock into the same kind of groove. Your feels develop to be closer to each other. You just, where everybody's going to be at. And it's strange because you think, yeah, it's a song. Everybody knows their parts, but you don't always know if the person's going to be right on point. You definitely, know that if you're well rehearsed. You don't necessarily know that if you're playing with someone that you don't have a whole lot of time with. And that develops. Takes time, it develops, but, being well rehearsed is one of the many parts of being prepared. Another one is knowing if there's any changes that were made, or knowing of the changes and remembering them. Sometimes you make little tweaks. Maybe you are doing like some sort of interlude or something like that in between songs. You want to make sure that, because those are always different, or maybe you're doing a little bit different part in one of your songs. You just got to make sure that you remember those changes, because if you don't, you're going to stick out. It's just, it all goes back into being well rehearsed and being prepared, the part of being prepared, but well rehearsed. Another part of being prepared is you have to be ready for the unexpected, which is super cliche. And I understand, when I wrote it down, I said it sounds cheesy, and it is. Be ready for anything. It's true though. You're not going to be ready for if someone jumps on stage and starts trying to punch your lead singer. Then I would assume you would just take your guitar and smash somebody, but, you got to protect your own, I'm not talking like that. I'm talking about, let's say, the venue has a back line, or you were in a rare position for, some schlup that, like myself, where you can kind of request a back line or whatever, and then they change it on you. You're let's say you're used to, playing a 6505. So, backline would be a 6505 or, maybe a 5150. They are different amps now, but they're in the same realm ish. It'd be one thing if you're expecting a 5150 and then you show up and they have a JCM 800. It's different. You got to learn you got to know how to roll with that. You're going to have to deal with it regardless, but those are different. That's an extreme kind of thing, Most of us aren't going to have to deal with the backline issue if you don't know what's coming. But, if you ask to use somebody's amp, you know what they have. If I know you well enough, that I play a 6505, or one of my other buddies, he plays a dual rec. The other buddy's got a 5150. You know what those do typically, or you can do enough research to figure out like, okay, I can do this to, they're voiced a little different because they all are, but you can figure it out. But that's one thing that would be definitely unexpected. Venue space is another one. Then that's obviously a big thing, especially when you're just playing bars and stuff like that. How many bars just set you up on the floor next to the bathroom? Play a show. Here's the PA. It's one speaker. Mics? Oh, you guys need mics? Well, I got to go get some. It's happened. It has happened. And once this lockdown quarantine dealio it'll continue to happen again. And side note, I would assume that's probably like a problem a lot of us would like to have right now. I would too. So sometimes the space isn't what you thought. Maybe the stage isn't as in good of shape as you thought it would be. Sometimes these places have 3-foot stages. Sometimes it's 8-inch stage. Sometimes you're on the floor. You gotta kind of know what you're dealing with. So you can do all sorts of internet stalking on all the venues. So that's an easy thing to be prepared for. So that's not really necessarily, it shouldn't be a surprising thing, but sometimes they make changes. Maybe they have enough room where they move you and you're like, whoa, what are we doing here? But you guys got to deal with it. The show goes on. Sometimes the singer is going to just stand out in the front because there's not enough room for everybody on the stage. You're jammed in a corner somewhere where you can barely fit. It happens. Happens all the time. And it'll continue to happen. Be prepared, or be, man, excuse me. Got to be prepared for sound limitations too. Not everybody's going to have a 10,000 watt PA, that has wedges and all the mics you need. Most of the time you're playing without monitors. You're going to use the house speakers as your monitor, and you just got to use your muscle memory. And this is when being well rehearsed definitely comes into play. Muscle memory kicks in, and you can kind of just know where you're at with how it feels. My man Eric is really, really good at that. He very rarely had a wedge back by him, or that he could hear himself, and it happens. He was he's a drummer, but he was really really good at using his muscle memory because he was well rehearsed in what his parts were, and he knew what it felt like to sing those parts. Swig of water. So he knew exactly where he was at all times. Well rehearsed, and it happens. You're always going to have sound limitations too. Nothing, and maybe a speaker goes out, Chord goes bad, anything can happen in that. You just got to deal with it. You got to run. All goes back to being well rehearsed. You can make it through. But you just got to be ready for these things. You got to know how you're setting up on stage too. It's another thing I learned. A lot when I was younger. It was you get up there and you're putting your stuff up. Which side do you want to stand on? Which side do you want to stand on? And that's fine. There's a lot of bands that probably do that, but I think it's much easier. And again, you know exactly where you're going to be when you establish where you're putting your amp, where you're putting your pedal board, where you're putting yourself. We like to always line up. I always like to line up the amps nice and smooth with like the if there's a drum riser or with the drums, so it looks nice. You see this all the time where these amps are crooked or they're just put wherever and you look like a donk. And not donk all day, boys. Shout out to Leonard Kenny. It looks bad. That's all part of it too. This is all part of what I learned. I feel it looks bad. Maybe people don't care. I do. It drives me crazy. It drives me crazy when I see something like that and the amps are all over. They're angled weird. It looks trashy. You don't see professional bands that are on tour and pay their bills with playing music and it looks like crap up there. They're lined up. They look nice. Everything is, you don't have, the guitarist has a pedal board. I don't want to get into pet peeves. But two things for anybody who plays a stringed instrument on stage. Use a tuner. And if you have more than just a tuner, get a damn pedal board. I don't want to get into it. No one wants to hear me rant about that. What the best thing to be on something like this too, because you have to work with the sound engineer. They are not out to make you sound bad unless you piss them off because they hold the keys. That's like pissing off your waiter or your waitress, the person who serves you food. Don't piss your waitress off and don't piss your sound engineer off. The more you can be cool with them, the more willing they will be to listen to your requests and make sure that you sound the best so you can put on the best performance. They want you to win. They don't want you to lose. Because a lot of times when there's music going on, there's a lot of musicians. And if it sounds bad, guess who they blame? The sound engineer. Guitar could be too loud. Maybe it's the lead singer. Maybe he's out of key. Turn the guitar down. Sound engineer did not know what he was doing. I bet the singer was off key because he couldn't hear himself in the monitors. Singers blame the sound engineer. Guitarists blame the bassist. Bassist can't blame anybody because it's their fault. Shout out to any bassists I know. I'm kidding. Mostly. No, I'm kidding. No, what I was getting at is, if possible, you should send a stage plot to the sound engineer. We have this thing called email now. It's really easy. You just make a small thing up. You can do it in your Paint or whatever. Stage plot is just showing where the amps are, how many microphones you may need, how many people are in your band, how many guitars you have, how many kit or how many piece kit your drummer has. It doesn't have to be anything super duper elaborate. but it does help. You know, if most of the time with the playing at bars and stuff, this isn't really necessary. But if you're playing anything with a little bit bigger stage or something with a more, I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for. I can't think of it. But with a more elaborate stage setup or PA setup, it is imperative. It helps a lot. Will the sound engineer even look at it? I don't know. That's not my problem. That's his problem then. You just let him know that you send a stage plot to him. Next thing, you got to make sure that you always have extra of certain pieces of gear. Extra strings. You know, if you're a guitar player, you want at least 2 guitars. I normally just run with one tuning, but I have a pedal that will help with drop tuning. I typically when I've played, I play in drop D, but then I have a pedal that I can put it all the way down to whatever. So I only need one guitar in that respect, but I always bring at least 2 guitars. I bring 2 guitars for each tuning. So if I just predominantly play in drop D, you know, then unless I use my pedal, I'll have 2 guitars. I want to try to be as light as possible. You know, I used to bring like 4, and it got stupid. I didn't have that pedal at the time. I had a couple of different tunings, and I like to have a backup guitar for each tuning. Just in case. I wanted to be prepared in that respect. It's important. You got to have extra strings with you. Maybe you're warming up and you break a string. That's your main guitar. Obviously you want to change the string out. You got to have extra chords. Always have to have an extra chord, at least one, because thankfully the odds of more than one chord going out is really low. But if it happens, well, you must have got struck by lightning or something. But I always have at least one chord as a backup. You're always going to need it. It's like what in Boondock Saints. What do you need freaking rope for? I don't know. You just always need it. What do you need extra cables for? I don't know. You just always need it. And especially with, you know, most of us playing like wireless setups and stuff now, you never know. Did you bring batteries? Sometimes you got to replace the batteries. Oh, when did I replace that battery last? Oh, I think it'll be fine. Well, then it pisses out on you. So then you can just grab your cord right away, plug it in, boom, you're ready. You're rolling. Extra batteries, extra cords, extra strings, extra guitar. You always need to have extras. You always want a toolkit with you. You need a basic toolkit. One toolkit for the whole band. It's all good. You know, you put a drum key in there. You got a string winder, cutter, various Allen wrenches, just in case you have to make any adjustments on the on any guitar, truss rod, you know, anything like that. Screwdrivers. Doesn't have to be an elaborate kit, but I always have toolkit. I haven't not had a toolkit on a gig in, I don't know, I couldn't remember. You always have to have a toolkit. Basic tools, just enough to keep your stuff going. You always want to take an inventory of all your stuff too. You have to have a personal inventory. How many cables I have. I got 3 cables. I got my 2 guitars. I got my amp. I got whatever. My pedal board. This is where this is at. This is where my extra batteries are at. Bring another strap. You know, you got to have backups for just about anything. Do I have my picks? Where do my picks go when I'm playing live? Do I have a microphone, mic stand pick holder? Is there some place that I stick them on my guitar? Do I stick it under my pedal or pick guard? You got to know where all that stuff is. And then you double check everybody else's stuff too. Do they have an extra cord? So let's say you have you yourself as a guitar player, you have another guitar player, and you have a bass player. That means that you should have 3 extra cords on stage, sitting on your amp, near your pedal board, just off stage, but you got to know where they're at. And each person should know that if I'm doing this, I know I can just grab a cable. The venue isn't there to make sure you have extra stuff. You know, I've forgotten some stuff at venues. You're welcome. But it's always got to be there. And everybody has to know that wherever they are on stage, there's an extra cable. Also then in turn, you know, if you write the stuff down, you know that, you know, your guitar player has, this are the picks that he uses, he or she, I should say, you know. There's the cables. You know, if you're able to put all the guitars in one stand, you know, I have like one of those suitcase stands that holds like 7 guitars. We were able to just put them all in one. You kind of put them a little off stage, again, with the stage cleanliness. But everybody knows exactly where they are, and that's where you put your stuff. So you're not searching around going, okay, which side of the stage is my stuff at? It's all on the same. It's always the same. You know, let's see here. What else we got here? Got that. Talked about that already. Yeah, I'm talking to myself into a microphone, and other people are listening to me talking to myself. Of course, I'm doing that anyways because I'm talking to a microphone to myself. So figure that out. Stage presence. I learned this. This took a long time. Because when you're young, you're super nervous, you know, obviously. You're in front of people. You're playing stuff that you wrote. So this is an extension of yourself. And you're putting that out there. So you're nervous. You don't want to get judged in a bad way. You want people to like it. You want people to like you, dang it. So a lot of times you tend on just standing in one spot, really concentrating on just playing correctly, which is what, you know, you got to do that too. You got to learn to play correctly. But this is where being well rehearsed really pays off. You're well rehearsed. You know, you can play these parts on your guitar in your sleep. You know where everybody's going to be at. You know all the time cues. You know it. You got it. Now this is when you can have fun. You run around like a maniac. You sweat. You scream. You smile. You know, not everybody has to be serious. You be serious when you play. You want to play the songs to the best of your ability, but it's supposed to be fun. So you smile and just yell, and you do stupid shit that makes your buddies on stage laugh. You know, that's some of the funnest stuff. Because you end up, you know, by the time you're at that point where you're well rehearsed and that confident, you've played those songs, I don't know, probably hundreds of times. You know, if you recorded them, if they're at that point, you recorded them, that's meticulous. You're so bored with the damn song at that point that you have to try to you always try to get over on the guys that are up on stage. So you do stupid shit, try to make them laugh, try to make them break to entertain yourself. And that all comes from, just acting like an idiot on stage all comes from being well rehearsed. You know, your confidence comes out. You can finally put on a show. You're not trying to play perfect because rock and roll isn't supposed to be perfect. You're just up there having fun because that's what it's supposed to be. So all your energy comes out. You have to be energetic. It doesn't matter. If you really wreck a song, hey, as long as you're jumping around and having fun, most of the time, people won't notice. I mean, unless it's an absolute freaking train wreck. No one will notice if you make a mistake. Unless the bass player makes a mistake. Because the bass is in the frequency range where it's very easy to hear and you feel it. It rumbles your stomach. So if something is wrong and it's in the low end, it's in the bass, it sticks out so bad. So people rag on bass players all the time. It's just more of a fun thing. Everybody knows that, like, you know, everything is important. But the rhythm section is obviously super, super duper important. Super duper. There it is again. It's super. Yeah. Unless you're a bass player. So you really got to be on point when you're a bass player. You can't mess up. So no, whatever I'm trying to say. Lost the word. That's how sharp I am on this Sunday morning. You got to be on point. And then if you do end up making a mistake, you have to no-sell it. You can't, you kind of make a face. The only time you make a face is if, like, you can turn around. It's one of those things like you're trying to make your drummer laugh or whatever. You turn around and just kind of give them one of those or something like that. But if you no-sell it to the audience, they won't know. They're off getting drinks. They are having, they want you to win too. So they're having fun. If you're having fun, they're having fun. And everybody's having fun and they want you to win. So don't draw any negative attention to it if you mess up. Just keep moving forward. Just make sure you fall in time. Otherwise, it will come off the tracks. And that's when everybody will notice. So don't do that. I think the last thing I really want to touch on, I know I've gone a long time here, so I appreciate you hanging in there with me. Take down and set up. This is, I said before, you don't want to piss your sound engineer off. They're waiting on you, as well as the other band is waiting on you, because if you got to get off stage and you're taking forever, that is less time that they can do to get their setup and their sound check and to not get the show behind. So you have to be super efficient. When you play first, you only have to be efficient in one way. You get there early enough, you set up, you got tons of time to set up, tons of time to sound check. So you can get the sound dialed in very nicely. You're all set up at beautiful. Everything looks wonderful, and you got a ton of time to do it. But when you hit that last note, there's no time for fucking around. You have to get off stage. And that doesn't mean the drummer is taking his cymbals off the cymbal stands before he takes them off the stage. No, you're grabbing cymbal stands. You're grabbing the drum rack, whatever. The lead singer, because he's got his mic stand. That's cleared. The lead singer, whoever, it's all hands on deck. You got buddies that are going to help you. Hey, when we're done, grab some shit. Help me get the fuck off the stage. No taking apart stuff. Obviously, you got to grab your cables. If you're a guitar player, don't just grab those, because it's one of my pet peeves. Again, not getting into it, but grab your cables. You put them on your pedal board. Someone grabs the whole pedal board, walks off stage. You grab your guitar, your guitar stand, grab the whole thing. If you need two people, you got all hands on deck. You got buddies with you. Lead singer can grab them, but you all take it off all at once. You grab your amp, you take it all off at once. You get the hell off the stage, and then once you're clear, be cool and help the next people get on stage unless they say, no, it's cool, we got it. But otherwise, be willing to help the next band get on stage. Because a lot of times they'll do that for you too. They'll help you get off. It's just you gotta keep the cycle going. Keeps the vibe of the show nice. No one gets a big head. No one gets offended or anything like that. So get off stage. And you have to have like an efficient setup. You really can't play bars when, if you got, you can, but if somebody has like a 2 amp setup and it takes a bunch of time to set up and tear down, and no, ain't gonna work. It is not gonna work. You have to be able to be efficient. You can't have 50 guitars and you got your cases. They all have you keep the cases on stage, and you don't have a stand. Come on, people. This isn't rocket science. You have a fucking guitar stand. You have people to help you, and you get off stage. All the setups have to be simple. Especially if you're playing bars. If you're playing bigger ones where there's more than a 15-minute changeover, if you go see a big band and it takes 45 minutes an hour for the next band to come up, okay. But they've also earned that right. We're all playing in bars. There's 3 bands that are playing after us. Do not be the reason the show gets behind, because it's already going to be behind, because they say it's going to start at 8. It's going to start at 9. That's the way it is. But don't be the reason that show gets behind. Don't be the reason. So just simplify your setup. 1 amp, pedal board, guitar stand that holds more than one guitar. It takes a lot less real estate up. They're not expensive. And you can grab double the stuff. If you have a guitar stand that holds 2 guitars, guess what? You can get 2 guitars off stage in the time it takes 1. Be efficient, be simple. So that's about where I'm at. I appreciate everybody listening. For sure. I know this one went longer than it was because I did talk about the UFC at the beginning. It was, at least to me, it was important. I'm a fan, obviously. And it was nice to watch something competitive live. I'm old and I've always been the fat kid, but I have a sports background, not fighting, but there's competitive things that go on in my DNA. And I like to watch competitive sports, and UFC is very interesting. They're the first one to come back. So they're running 3 events this week. So so I got excited about it, and I appreciate everybody listening. This is number 7, I think now, episode 7. I'm just going to keep plugging away. So this has been, Can I Get More Podcasts in My Monitor? I'm Johnny Ruckus, and I appreciate everybody listening. We'll talk to you next week.